Hi, my name is Nick. I'm from Sartell, Minnesota, and I'm just a caregiver for these 4 lovely ladies over here.
I am Sarah.
I'm Kaylee, and
I'm Annabelle.
I'm Kiana.
And we all have CVID. We have had a journey of a roller coaster, as many others with PI do. We started out with Kiana, our oldest, with a lot of infections. Doctors, unfortunately, shrugging us off. And so we had to learn to become our best advocates right away for our girls. And it took the bravery of a doctor to tell us that he didn't know what was doing or what was happening. And so he had sent us down to see a specialized ENT for Kiana that specializes in pediatrics. And she had a sinus surgery. But at the consultation, he had asked us if you had ever had your immunoglobulins tested. And we looked at him like he was speaking a foreign language. And ultimately, it just came down to the fact of he did it and scheduled Kiana's sinus surgery. The day of her sinus surgery, she ended up getting her first immunoglobulin treatment that day. We were at Minneapolis Children's Hospital with the sinus surgery, and St. Paul Children's called us from immunology saying she needs this now. It was a very scary situation. She ended up getting a blood infection because when you release all the bacteria, obviously you increase risk of a lot of other things. So she was in a very scary situation that night. We really weren't sure what was going to happen. And luckily, everything kind of started normalizing to the extent that a PI kiddo can be normal. And we were able to get on the road recovery in that regards. And she started on IVIG for every 3 weeks. And so we would have to travel down to Children's. We're up in St. Cloud, Minnesota. So it's about an hour and a half to 2 hour drive down there. And so we would make a day or make a field trip of it. Then about, I think it was at the next appointment after Kiana had established care with the immunologist, she had asked just kind of health history of everybody else and checking in on Annabelle and Kaylee. And basically their infection rates, how they've been sick. Unfortunately, I was in denial. She wanted them tested just because they had been frequently battling infections. And I was like, wait, no, there's no way I gave this to my kids. I battled with mom guilt pretty bad. So from February to April, I didn't get them tested. April came and we get the call. You now have 3 kiddos with CVID. Actually, we got the call that they were immune deficient. Annabelle was initially diagnosed with hypogammaglobulinemia, and it has progressed. They now watch her neutrophils and white cells because she's kind of fluttering with neutropenia. So they've been watching that. Kaylee actually is kind of our silent duck. They knew something was wrong. They initially diagnosed her with specific antibody deficiency because her titer responses were pretty much non-existent. And so we did lots of boosters, lots of shots and trials and to see what would work. And it was kind of a guessing game for a while. And they ended up adding her on prophylactic antibiotics, and we started to see some benefit. And her numbers always flirted right with the line of danger, basically. And unfortunately, it was, you have to wait and see. She had all the infections, the clinical representation of that, we just needed the numbers. And then all of a sudden, about 5 years now, Kaylee's numbers dipped drastically, and they didn't hesitate a minute. They got her on treatment. So that's been the diagnosis journey of them. At one of their appointments, their immunologist, every visit, they always do the family history. And at one of the visits, they made a brave section of, have you ever been tested? And asked me if I had been. I was like, no, I'm sick. I'm tired taking care of the girls. I'm just run down. They brought stuff home. I got it. Kind of the whole mom pushing herself aside type syndrome. And so it took the bravery of asking me a few visits. And finally at the last visit before I got tested, she actually took my hand and said, let's go for a walk. And I was like, okay. And it was when the girls were going in to get their labs, and she's literally walked us down to lab and said, Sarah's here to get tested. I put the orders in the chart. And I had never had an account at Children's. I was an adult. I didn't even know that was possible. But she, again, another brave doctor, took the chance to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. And holy buckets, I'm grateful for that, because she got me tested when I didn't think there was an issue. I thought what I've battled even through childhood was normal. And sure enough, I was immune deficient as well, and initially diagnosed with CVID and still am. They are concerned about my titers, but that's kind of like just a common thing. And I also do have autoimmune issues as well that have progressed, so they watch that. Treatment story has been a little bit different for all of us. Kiana and Annabelle have a journey together pretty much from go. And they started out, they got a porta-cath pretty much right away, just because we knew this was going to be a long-term thing. So they each have their battle scars from that, and they would have sister trips down to Children's Hospital. We would pretty much make as best day as you can. Obviously, parent-wise, we probably took the spoiling maybe a little bit too far, but we wanted it to be positive. And so there was actually a fun story of Kiana's first surgery. Her first treatment, I mean, when she had her sinus surgery, when she woke up from a blood infection and she was very febrile, and afterwards came to, and they calmed the pain down with some morphine and everything like that. We had convinced her that Hannah Montana came to visit, and we gave her a Hannah Montana blanket and purse. And so she was thrilled that she thought Hannah Montana, who was a very huge influence for her at that time, had came to visit her. So we had no limits as far as little white lies we would do to kind of help these kiddos get through it. We would make field trips, make sure there was special foods in place, and they kind of had a sister day. Kaylee has gained the nickname Server because when she would come along, she would go to the nurse's station and ask them, my sister needs this, and she would bring it back. And she turned into kind of a caretaker, big sister role as the baby sister. And so she just kind of looked on, and in that time, she was learning a lot from Kiana and Annabelle of how their treatments went. She also learned a lot that she hates needles, whether it be the sight or the feel of them. Then I don't remember the whole journey of it, but sub-Q got brought up at a doctor's appointment, and it was something the girls had been introduced to a few times before. They were like, yep, we want to try it. One big thing is Kiana is also selective IgA deficient. Actually, she is IgA absent. And so you have to be very critical of what treatments get chosen. And so that limited us. We were introduced to Hizentra, and I had already been on it because I did 3 IV IG treatments, and my veins collapsed. They said I have the veins of a chemo patient because they just kept collapsing, had venous spasms, would travel up the arm, and it was just a really bad situation. And so after that, they had said, nope, you don't qualify for a port, you don't qualify for IV, we need to try sub-Q. And so we did that. And I have been on Hizentra sub-Q for about 10 years now. I believe it was the summer of 2010 that I was diagnosed. So it's very quickly approaching as a 11-year marker here for me. Kiana was diagnosed when she was 3, and Annabelle and Kaylee were diagnosed when they were 2. So it's been a journey in our house pretty much our whole lives. That's all we've known as PI.
I would personally say is just kind of think of like things that make you happy and focus on those instead of focusing on the things that kind of bring you down. I know from experience that thinking of those positive things have definitely uplifted me. And then with my family kind of helping me think of those positive things when I'm having a really rough day with PI issues. So it's definitely kind of like a mental strength of thinking of those positive things instead of focusing on the bad. So
I always
you know, the saying, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. It may be dark now, but it's going to get brighter. Life's going to get better. It's just a new chapter. It's a new stage. And we all have to learn how to, you know, figure it out. Or, you know, we have people to connect with, so that makes it easier, you know, guiding us through. So the positivity, you know, with connecting with other people is there.
I think a big piece of advice for me being diagnosed as an adult who had some experience but still was kind of, I guess, blissfully ignorant of what was fully ahead of us to go through is understand that there's going to be those rough days and that it is a chapter, as Annabelle said, it is a part of you, but it doesn't have to define who you are or who you're going to become, and not to let it defeat you. You can survive your struggle. You can get through this. And it is, as long as you embrace the fact that you have it, because it's not going to go away. So when you can accept it, that helps you move forward and helps you realize that there's so many opportunities and availabilities out there to get research, to get connections, and to help you not feel alone.
Another thing, like a mindset that my mom taught me is, what is it doing for you instead of like
For you instead of to you.
to you.